Well, thank you everyone for coming. Raise your hand if you know what a historical NFT is. All right, we got one, we got a few. It's a small niche that exists within the emergent world of NFTs. How many people collect antiques in the real world? We got one antique collector, right? It's kind of the same idea, and so hopefully we can guide you through what this actually means, because NFTs have a deep and dense history that goes back to 2011 that not a lot of people know. They actually thought that it began in 2017 with CryptoPunks, and so we'll help you understand that that's not actually the case. We have some important people on the stage, so we'll go through a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll go through, maybe in chronological order, everything how we have to do. So,
hello, my name is Shawn Leary. I'm a part of the Rare Pepe project, and I was one of the curators of what some people say is the first decentralized art collection. And then it uses a protocol called Counterparty, and it's all on Bitcoin. But like Jake said, it started way sooner than that. You had Namecoin. I see Neely in the audience. You know, the leap of turning a token into the art is something that slowly built up, and you have to go back, and there's a history to it. And the community is freaking, look at the vibes of it's the best space to be a part of. So happy to be here. So.
Yeah, Shawn, don't let Shawn dismiss you. He's one of the OGs, Rare Pepe. Does everyone know what Pepe is? Yes. Of course everyone knows what Pepe is. It's pretty much the Mickey Mouse of crypto and of the internet, right? It's the most memed, I guess you say it, IP in existence. So.
Yeah, I love Rare Pepes. Yeah, thanks, Jake. And yeah, it's a pleasure to actually share the stage with Jake and Shawn. So I'm Steven Xoao. I've been kind of deep diving into historical NFTs and doing research for a while now. And I'm the community lead for Crypto Skulls DAO, which is a 2019 project. Pixel art, very, very skullish, we call it. But yeah, it's really about the community, as you said. It's fitting that we're on the community stage. It's a niche space, but it's growing. And I think the historical NFT space is something that you should definitely do your research on.
Absolutely. So Steven has created the Historical NFT Museum, which is a pretty good educational tool to help people understand what it actually is. And my name is Jake Gallen. I work over at Emblem Vault, which is a tool that helps people trade NFTs across blockchains. So if you're familiar with ordinals or Bitcoin stamps or Counterparty, our tool allows them to trade on OpenSea. And as of today, it has about 45,000 ETH traded and 12,000 unique holders, which makes Emblem Vault the 6th largest NFT collection in the industry. So, and most of our community members are from the historical NFT space. Of the 50,000 NFTs that have been created, 25,000 of them are Rare Pepes, because that is the beloved project that is the birth of decentralized crypto art. And we'll move into that in a second. But I want to take this all the way back to where NFTs began. NFTs began actually on Namecoin. Does anyone know what Namecoin is by chance? Nobody does, yeah. So Namecoin was actually the first altcoin that was created. It was actually advocated for by Satoshi Nakamoto, Gavin Andreessen, Hal Finney. You could go to the old Bitcoin Talk forums and you can see them debating about forking Bitcoin to create this domain registry or decentralized version of it. And so the first NFT that was ever created is actually Bitcoin.bit. It's this similar idea of what ENS is, if you're familiar with ENS with .eth, but this was .bit and it was just for domains because there's no smart contracts. And from here, this is kind of where a lot of experimentation happened. Decentralized identity and domains were kind of like a high priority and a high preference for a lot of these early cypherpunks. And from there, this is where you start seeing your first tokenized images. You start seeing GIFs that are being registered by Kevin McCoy. You start seeing actual early PFPs being registered to the blockchain, like Twitter eggs and blockheads that were created by 8bit.me. People were taking these non-NFT avatar builders. So they're actually called avatars before PFPs. A lot of people don't know that. We've kind of ruined that and appropriated it. And then from there, they start taking their PFPs from Twitter, registering them into Namecoin. And there's a whole nother back-end way to collect this, and we'll cover collecting in a second. But then when you move on from Namecoin and you go to Bitcoin, there's two different platforms that existed with early Bitcoin NFT experimentation. One is Ascribe that does not exist anymore, and then you have Counterparty, which Shawn mentioned. And Counterparty is where you start seeing a bunch of NFTs being created, a bunch of individual NFTs, are just tokens that have images registered to them in these very early days of experimentation. And this is kind of where the birth of NFTs begin, with Spells of Genesis, and then Rare Pepes. And we're lucky enough to have Shawn here, who was literally in the very beginning of the birth of crypto art as one of the Rare Pepe scientists, which is just a group of individuals who helped curate Rare Pepes, which now exists as 1,774 different cards.
Yeah, you'd call them editions. I think now that's the term. Basically one art, and then there's 300 of them, or there's actually one of one. So only one Pepe was the first one of one, I think, in a collection. So a lot of firsts, but people like to collect different stuff, and we're all looking at our phones anyway, and the art is about that size. So it's just going to be in the right place, the right time, and.
So Shawn, tell us a little bit what it was like creating these decentralized or distributed art network. Rare Pepes ended up with over 300 artists across 2 years, but in those early days there was no blueprint of what an NFT was, and that term NFT wasn't created till 2018. So what were those early discussions like?
ETH people take over and they rename everything. We came up with this. It's our. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, what was the question again? Sorry.
Just for everyone that's in the crowd, like, what were those early days like when you're creating this decentralized crypto art network that didn't have a blueprint?
Everything happened in a Telegram chat. So we're all living in this virtual world, communicating, building relationships. We're spaced out, so we're kind of finding ourselves these like-minded little communities, and someone just kind of hit the spark. And two companies had been trying to make NFTs. You had Force of Will, you had Spells of Genesis, and they never went anywhere with it. One got canceled, and the game with Spells of Genesis wasn't that good. But for like 2 years, the technology's there. No one thought about and Mike comes into the chat. He comes in the Counterparty chat. He's like, I'm going to make provably rare Pepes, because that was part of the meme of Pepe. There's a great video of a young man. He's about 12, 13. He's like, I will now make the rarest Pepe. And this little heavy-set little kid, and he's like, I will draw this Pepe with my eyes closed, and then I will rip it up and eat it. So no one has ever seen this Pepe. It is the rarest Pepe ever. And he draws it, and then he eats the whole thing. So the meme kind of goes, okay, let's use the blockchain to prove it. So yeah, and the art, everybody that came into the space, when you're curating a collection, there's a vibe, right? And you want your art to be accepted by that community. So everyone and then we had to cancel. We had to tell people that you got to do better, because some of them were just so low effort. There were some funny low effort ones, and then there's ones that you got to do something here. And people had already burnt the Pepe Cash, because you had to buy Pepe Cash. That was our little circular economy. That was the main trading pair for most of the cards. So yeah, it was an awesome time. So
yeah, if Rare Pepes are generally first to everything. Even the most popular NFT artist, Xcopy, has a tweet saying, if you think you are first of something, check and make sure that Rare Pepes didn't do it first. A lot of early experimentation on Bitcoin. And from that time period of 2014 where Counterparty was created until, you'd say 2017 is when the ETH NFTs started beginning. Ethereum was deployed in 2015, and there were some very early experimental projects that populated before what's called this ERC 721, which is the NFT standard, which was created and became official in March 2018. So all these projects before March 2018 on Ethereum are what we consider pretty valuable, at least most people do, because there was no standardization to it. So you start seeing a lot of different experimentations. And so I wanted to ask Steven, as somebody who's a curator of the Historical NFT Museum, what type of differences and unique projects popped up in 2017 in those early days of Ethereum that may be interesting to the crowd?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. So I've got here the Historical NFT Museum card, and I'll hand these out to you where you can scan the QR code and actually see the museum. But what you've got here is that we've broken it down into 5 sort of different periods. But specifically to answer your question, 2017 is what we call middle to late emergence period, where we see expanding interest in crypto and on-chain collectibles. So it really, obviously 2017 is a huge year, where you see the first 10K PFP, the CryptoPunks, obviously, and obviously then you see the projects that are, like you said, the Mooncats in 2018, and it's really creation of that ERC 721 token in January 2018 that kind of sparked the whole conversation. But I'm just looking at a list of projects actually that you should check out. So you've got the the Mooncats, the Ether Rocks, the CryptoBots, the Realms of Ether, Crypto Titties, Crypto Fighters, ENS, Crypto Kitties. So many amazing projects, right? And I don't want to miss it out. That's why I'm literally telling you it from the museum. So you really have to check it out. But for me, it's really about education, and that whole period is so significant that it shaped culture. It shaped the era of PFPs, and we didn't realize it until much later on, right? When we actually used those PFPs in our Twitter profile. So it's pretty interesting in terms of the cultural changes that people are accustomed to, and I think the culture of collecting digital collectibles is fascinating. And so the museum is really about educating people about it, because it's going to be lost if you don't talk about it, right? But yeah, I think that's what's interesting, and I think you should check out those specific projects within that period of time.
When you look at pre-ERC 721, so March 2018 and before, you probably have less than 100 total projects that exist within NFT history. And so for collectors, this is quite valuable. If you collect antiques, or if you're in some sort of physical trading industry, you look for this idea of scarcity. But also, antique collectors look for this idea of provenance, right? And provenance is this idea of that you can prove how long something has existed. This is how a lot of art collectors or art houses tend to value their pieces, is to have this kind of like chain of command, or this chain of history proving something was created. So for historical NFT collectors, they look for a timestamp. This is like the big innovation for NFTs, or at least this is what the historical NFT community feels. Because when you're in the traditional art world and you are trying to purchase something, the way to track the history is generally word of mouth or some signed documents, and it generally tends to change over time through multiple documents. With NFTs, there's a timestamp, and that never changes. So that type of research is pretty much null and void at that point in time. And so once you move past this like pre-ERC 721, and the reason why I keep hammering that is this is what we call this like Cambrian explosion of NFTs. And so from 2018 and on, you see in 2018 alone, there's about 2,000 projects that happen. 2019, there's about 3,000. And then we get to 2021, right? And then you start seeing multiple thousands of projects being deployed per month. So it just becomes this like huge funnel. And this kind of introduces this idea of like how historical NFTs began. And this is in March of 2021. As Steven mentioned, there was something called the Mooncat Rediscovery, where a bunch of collectors, or you could call them investigators, had found a 2017 project that was free to mint. Only 5,000 had been claimed out of the 25,000 total. And basically all of crypto Twitter found out and started minting these. At the time, it was considered the second oldest NFT on ETH, which now it's probably the 25th or 26th. And that Mooncat floor went from free to 2 ETH in the matter of like 2 days, and I think it still sits around like 0.2 or 0.3. But this is when the community started looking and saying like, oh, if this is the second oldest NFT, what else could be out there? And from this time, this is where the timelines and the memers and everybody would try to figure out, we call them the NFT archaeologists, which I know sounds quite chaotic.
It's accurate though, right? They're on a scavenger hunt, a digital scavenger hunt.
And this is, and then from this, we see literally dozens of projects being rediscovered every month, which goes into its own kind of bubble or everything. But the Pepe community is a project that actually did not have to be rediscovered. There's a handful of these historical NFT projects where the community never died. And this is what we call cultural relevance. You have historical relevance from the timestamp, but cultural relevance pretty much is something where the community stayed around, they believed in the project, and they were able to tell their stories when this reinvigoration happened. And this mostly relates to Pepe's, Punks, and Spells of Genesis. There's really not many. And from here, this is where all the value happens. So Shawn, as one of maybe 3 or 4 NFT communities that existed throughout or stood together through the 2018 bear market when everything died, take us through that experiment of how Pepe, decided to close up shop, and then the community was kind of revived and reinvigorated from this new NFT explosion.
Yeah, it got pretty quiet there for a couple of years, for sure. And then some of us had to dust off our wallets and be like, "Hey, whoa, I've got a 1 of 5 in my collection. I forgot I had that one." So it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing, and so to be a part of the history of it is something very special.
Did you guys ever believe back then that you were doing something historic or something that might be relevant?
No, we were just having fun making stupid memes. I made the 5th, probably the first weed NFT, which my grandkids will be very happy about. So I made 420 of them, obviously, and I sold 410 that day for about $1 each, and I was like, I made $400 on my meme that took a couple hours. So we're just having fun, and it did get pretty quiet there.
And this is something that we see throughout the historical NFT space. Is those projects that were created where it was free to claim, or there was no expectation of profits, are the ones that are actually like quite valuable now. The highest selling Pepe ever is Pepeopolis, that sold at Sotheby's auction house for $3.5 million. So right, these type of Pepes, they sell in CryptoPunk price ranges because it's a very similar dynamic. CryptoPunks were free to claim as well. But moving on to where Steven hangs out, he is a devout member of the Crypto Schools community, which is a 2019 project. There's a bunch of different firsts or claims for firsts, which is always heavily debated. I've learned in the historical space, never say you're first because it's a never-ending philosophical debate.
I have a skull. I love it.
Wait a second.
But Steven, tell us the dynamic of Crypto Schools within this historical NFT context, where maybe it has more modern NFTs, which we just say is like 2021 and to the present day. It's kind of like in this middle area where a lot of people debate that it's not historical because of the timestamp, but then it's early in other categories that may be considered historical.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I think it's really interesting, right? So 2018 to 2019 and onwards, we call in the museum the late emergence to early consolidation period. And this is a period where like mainstream adoption of NFTs is finally kind of growing, and digital ownership is something that is starting to grow even more. But Crypto Skulls specifically, I've been kind of trying to find my tribe, right? Trying to find my community, and like you, I collect early NFTs because I believe in the conviction of just collecting stuff, having fun, and kind of collecting the memes because that's why not? It's fun. But Crypto Skulls is obviously a community that I really believe in because it's got some really early collectors. We've got some pretty OG collectors that kind of create that culture and that community. For me, that is where these specific projects, then kind of develop, not only do you have the timestamp and the early significance of it, but you also kind of combine it with the cultural aspect, the community aspect. And I think that's what it's all about, right? And Crypto Skulls is not just, we believe that it's not just, the past, but it's building on the future with the past, right? In order to understand, the future, we have to understand our past. So, I think the interesting part is like, how does communities form, right? How does culture form? And Crypto Skulls is a really unique community that has the OG collectors, but they are also building things like the historical NFT museum to try and educate people about the future and the future generations of NFTs in general.
So we're running short on time here. One last question. Shawn, how would you describe the historical NFT community?
I mean, I guess kind of the pioneers, basically. And if you're going to be collecting, I think you go with, like you said, the communities that have kept that cohesion together. And so, yeah.
Stephen, how would you describe the historical NFT community as somebody who operates the museum and is quite involved with all 100, or I guess you could say 6,000 communities, depending on what your time range is?
Yeah, it's a fascinating community. It's a die-hard OG community that really understands the cultural significance of NFTs. They love collecting and they love the memes, and it's only going to grow. And please do join us.
Historical NFT community, one difference that I hope you guys could take is it's a community full of collectors versus traders. And we try to show this divide because a lot of the NFT flippers who come in, who are flipping PFPs, will come into the historical space and they'll get absolutely wrecked because they'll buy a bunch up expecting a return pretty quickly, whereas most people are generally buying to hold and send to a vault. One stat I'll leave you on is Mooncats is one of the popular NFT collections of 25,000. About 12,000 of them that have been minted are still in the original minter's wallet. So you're saying about 50% of the supply has never been traded. And that's because it is a community full of collectors. So yeah, thank you guys for coming. If you're interested in historical NFTs or want to learn more, happy to come talk to us on the side, and we could share your information. And thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.